I stared at my phone, reading the message from my mother for the 10th time. Family dinner tonight. Don't be late like always. My stomach churned at the thought of another evening of subtle jabs and disappointed looks. I'm Alexandra, and at 34, I own one of the most profitable real estate ventures in the city. Not that my family knows this. To them, I'm just Steven's wife who does something with apartments. The irony? They all live in my building. Earth to Alex. Audrey waved her hand in front of my face, bringing me back to our lunch meeting. You're thinking about the dinner, aren't you? How can I not? I pushed my salad around the plate. Mom's already starting with the texts. You know how she gets when Steven's family is involved. You could always tell them, you know. Audrey raised an eyebrow. About owning the building, about everything, and give up the piece of being underestimated? I forced a laugh. Besides, it's better this way. Easier to manage tenants who don't know you're the owner. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Hope, my sister-in-law. Mom wants to know if you're bringing anything tonight. Maybe something store-bought since we know how busy you are? God, the passive-aggressive emojis, I muttered, showing Audrey the message. Remind me again why you let them live in your building? Because I'm a masochist? I sighed. Actually, it was Steven's idea. He thought it would help everyone stay close. If he only knew. The truth was, I'd built my empire quietly over the past decade. Starting with one small property, then another, until I owned half the residential blocks in our area. The crown jewel? The luxury apartment complex where my mother, my in-laws, and Steven's sister all lived, blissfully unaware that their rent checks went straight to my company. Ms. Whitfield? Maria, my assistant, approached our table. The contractors are ready for the walkthrough at the new development. Thanks, Maria. I'll be there in 10. I turned back to Audrey. Duty calls. Alex, wait. Audrey grabbed my wrist. Promise me something? Don't let your mom get to you tonight. Remember who you really are? I nodded, but we both knew better. My mother, Yvette, had a special talent for finding my weak spots. Ever since I was little, nothing I did was quite good enough. Even marrying Steven, a successful architect, somehow fell short of her expectations. The afternoon flew by in a blur of meetings and site inspections. Before I knew it, I was standing outside my mother's apartment. My apartment, technically. Smoothing down my simple black dress. There you are. Steven appeared behind me, fresh from work. I was worried you'd get caught up at the office. I let him kiss my cheek, grateful for his constant support, even if he didn't know the full extent of my success. We'd kept our finances separate by mutual agreement, and he never questioned the comfortable lifestyle my small business provided. Ready? He asked, reaching for the doorbell. As I'll ever be. The door swung open to reveal my mother, perfectly coiffed as always. Finally, everyone's been waiting. Michael and Hope brought the most wonderful wine. Michael, my brother-in-law, stood in the living room with a smug smile. Hey, Alex, rough day at the office? You look tired. Actually, I started, but Mom cut me off. Alexandra, dear, you really should do something about those dark circles. I keep telling you, working so hard at your age will only lead to wrinkles. I caught Elisa, Mom's best friend and neighbor, hiding a smile behind her wine glass. She lived in the penthouse apartment, my most expensive unit, and never missed a chance to witness my mother's special brand of criticism. Steven, my mother turned to my husband. The promotion at your firm is such wonderful news. At least one of you is moving up in the world. I felt my phone vibrate in my purse. Probably Audrey checking in. She knew how these dinners usually went. Instead of checking it, I plastered on my best smile and headed for the kitchen to help Hope with the dishes. Don't worry about helping, Hope called out. I know you're not really the domestic type. I gripped the counter, taking deep breaths. If they only knew that I'd signed a multi-million-dollar deal just this morning. That the renovation they were all complaining about in the building's east wing was actually part of my expansion plan. That every comfort they enjoyed in this overpriced apartment complex was thanks to my business acumen. But tonight wasn't the night for revelations. At least, that's what I thought until my mother's voice carried from the dining room. Everyone, Please sit down. I have an announcement to make about the building management. My head snapped up. Something in her tone made my stomach drop. Maybe tonight would be more interesting than I'd planned. I hurried to the dining room, my heart pounding. Mom stood at the head of the table, wine glass in hand, commanding everyone's attention like a queen addressing her subjects. The building management has been absolutely terrible lately, she announced. That's why I've started a petition to have them replaced. The wine I'd just sipped went down the wrong way. I coughed and Stephen patted my back concernedly. You okay? He whispered. I nodded, unable to speak as my mother continued. I've already gathered signatures from most of the residents on our floor, she said proudly. Elisa, you'll sign too, won't you? Elisa nodded enthusiastically. Of course, the maintenance response times have been dreadful. I bit my tongue. Those dreadful response times were due to a complete overhaul of the building's electrical system, an upgrade I'd ordered after finding out the previous owner had cut corners. Alexandra. Michael chimed in, swirling his wine glass. You work in real estate, don't you? Maybe you could actually do something useful and help us with this petition. I don't think, I started, but Mom cut me off again. Oh, please, Alexandra barely knows anything about proper real estate. She just handles paperwork for that tiny management company, right, dear? Stephen shifted uncomfortably beside me. Actually, Yvette, Alex runs her own. Dinner looks wonderful, I interrupted, not ready for Stephen to defend my honor. Hope, did you make the lasagna? Store-bought, Hope admitted. Some of us are too busy with actual careers to cook from scratch. The dig wasn't subtle. Last month, I'd declined to join her MLM scheme, citing work commitments. She hadn't forgiven me since. Speaking of careers, my mother set down her glass. Michael just made partner at his law firm. Now that's what I call success. Congratulations. I managed, though the word tasted bitter. Thanks, Alex. Michael's smile was razor sharp. You know, if you ever want to move up from pushing papers, I could put in a word at our real estate division. Entry level, of course. The table erupted in poorly concealed snickers. Even Stephen looked uncomfortable now. I appreciate the offer, but Alexandra. My mother interrupted yet again. You really should consider it. Lord knows you need direction in your life. 34, and what do you have to show for it? The room fell silent. I could feel everyone's eyes on me. Mom, I said quietly, I'm doing fine. Fine isn't good enough. She slammed her hand on the table, making the silverware jump. Look at everyone else here. Stephen's up for partner. Michael's already made it. Hope runs her own business. Even Elisa's daughter just bought her first house. But you're still playing at having a career. That's enough, Stephen started. But Mom was on a roll. No, it needs to be said. I'm tired of watching my daughter waste her potential. Do you know what people say? They wonder why Stephen stays with someone so underachieving. The word hung in the air like poison. I felt my cheeks burn, not with embarrassment, but with rage. Mother, let me finish. I've arranged an interview for you at Michael's firm. A real job, with real prospects. It's time you stop pretending to be a businesswoman and the maintenance issues, I cut in, my voice steady despite my racing heart, are because we're upgrading the electrical system. The old wiring wasn't up to code. Everyone stared at me. And how would you know that? Michael asked, condescension dripping from every word. I pulled out my phone, opened my emails, and slid it across the table to my mother. Because I approved the work order 3 weeks ago. What are you talking about? She squinted at the screen. The petition won't do anything, Mom. The management company reports directly to the owner. I took a deep breath. And the owner doesn't respond well to threats. And how exactly would you know what the owner thinks? Hope asked, her voice sharp. I stood up slowly, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Years of hiding, of swallowing their insults, of letting them believe what they wanted. It all seemed to crystallize in this moment. Because, I said, looking each of them in the eye, you're all having dinner in my building. The silence that followed was deafening. Stephen's fork clattered to his plate. Michael's smug smile froze. Hope's mouth hung open. And my mother? My mother's face went through a fascinating series of expressions before settling on disbelief. "You're lying," she whispered. I reached for my purse. "Would you like to see the deed?" The screech of chair legs against hardwood floor broke the silence as my mother stood up. "This isn't funny, Alexandra." "I'm not trying to be funny." I kept my voice level, though my hands trembled slightly as I reached into my purse. "Stephen." My mother turned to my husband. "Did you know about this?" Stephen looked as stunned as everyone else. Alex, what's going on?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Audrey's name flashed on the screen. Perfect timing, as always. "Excuse me," I said, stepping away from the table. "I need to take this." "Don't you dare walk away from this conversation." My mother's voice rose sharply. I answered the phone anyway, walking to the kitchen. "Hey, Audrey. How's the dinner from hell going?" "Actually, I just told them." "Told them what?" A pause. "Wait, you didn't— that I own the building?" "Yeah, I did." "Holy shit, Alex, I'm coming over." "No, don't—" But she'd already hung up. When I returned to the dining room, Michael was on his phone, presumably fact-checking my claim. Hope was whispering frantically to Stephen. My mother stood rigid, her face pale. "This is impossible," Michael declared, looking up from his phone. "The building is owned by AW Properties." "AW," I said slowly. "Alexandra Whitfield." "But—" Hope's voice was small. That would mean I own not just this building, but the entire block." I sat back down, reaching for my wine glass. "And the development across town, and the new complex being built on River Street." "You're lying," my mother repeated, but her voice wavered. The front door burst open, and Audrey strode in, carrying a folder. "Sorry to interrupt family dinner, but I thought these might help." "Who are you?" my mother demanded. "Audrey Gross, CFO of AW Properties." She dropped the folder on the table. "And your daughter's business partner." Michael snatched up the folder, his lawyer instincts kicking in. As he flipped through the documents, his face grew increasingly pale. "These are legitimate," he muttered. "Property deeds, tax records, business licenses." "Alex?" Stephen touched my arm gently. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted to," I said softly. "But at first, it was just easier to keep things separate. And then it became entertaining," Audrey finished, earning herself a glare from my mother. "Entertaining?" Yvette spat. "You think making fools of your family is entertaining?" "No, Mother. What's entertaining is watching you complain about building management to my face for the past 3 years." Hope gasped. "The rent increases were necessary for the improvements you all demanded," I finished. "Though I did give everyone in this room friends and family discounts. You're welcome." "This is why you wouldn't join my business opportunity," Hope realized. "Hope, I gross more in a month than your MLM makes in a year." Michael let out a low whistle, still examining the documents. "These profit margins are impressive." "Thank you, Michael. Still want to offer me that entry-level position?" His face reddened. Audrey snorted. "I don't understand," my mother said, sinking back into her chair. When did you— "Remember that inheritance from Grandma?" I asked. "The one you said I was foolish to invest in property instead of buying a bigger house?" "That was seed money," Audrey explained. "Alex turned 50,000 into an empire, while keeping it quiet because certain people—" She glanced pointedly around the table. "Might have undermined her if they'd known." Stephen stood up suddenly. "I need some air." "Stephen, wait." I started to follow him, but Audrey caught my arm. "Let him process," she whispered. "This is a lot to take in." "Well," Elisa spoke for the first time since my revelation. "I suppose this explains why my maintenance requests were always handled so quickly. Actually," I turned to her, "your requests were handled quickly because you're a good tenant who doesn't make unreasonable demands. unlike some people. I looked meaningfully at my mother. How dare you? Mom's voice shook. I am your mother. Yes, you are. And you're also my tenant. Speaking of which, I pulled out my phone. Should we discuss that petition now? The room fell silent again. I could see the wheels turning in everyone's heads, reassessing every interaction we'd had over the years. I think, Audrey said, breaking the tension, this might be a good time to tell them about the River Street development. What about it? Michael asked sharply. I smiled, feeling a weight lift from my shoulders. After years of hiding my success, of swallowing their condescension, of playing small to keep the peace, I was finally free to be myself. Well, I said, let's just say the rent increases here will seem minimal compared to what's coming in that neighborhood. My mother's face went from pale to red. Alexandra Marie Whitfield, you wouldn't dare. But for the first time in my life, I knew exactly how much power I held, and I wasn't afraid to use it. Wouldn't dare what, Mother? I leaned forward. Raise the rent? Enforce the building's policies? Or maybe just start treating my investments like the business they are? You can't do this to your own family. Hope interjected, her voice trembling. Actually, Audrey pulled out another document. According to Section 8 of your lease agreements, we can adjust rent with 60 days' notice. Michael grabbed the lease, scanning it frantically. This is standard language, but surely what? I stood up. Surely I wouldn't exercise my legal rights? Surely I'd continue to let you all live here at below-market rates while you mock my career? The door opened, and Stephen walked back in, his face composed but serious. We need to talk, Alex. Stephen. My mother latched onto him like a lifeline. Surely you'll talk some sense into her? Actually, Yvette, he said quietly, I think I need to talk to my wife about why she felt she couldn't trust me with this. The words hit me like a slap. Stephen, it wasn't about trust. Really? He ran a hand through his hair. Because finding out my wife owns half the city during a family dinner feels a lot like a trust issue. Oh, this is rich, my mother scoffed. She's been lying to everyone, and you're all acting like she's the victim. I never lied, I snapped. I just didn't correct your assumptions. There's a difference. A difference that cost you your family's trust. Michael added smugly. Audrey stepped forward. Okay, enough. Alex, we have that meeting with the investors tomorrow morning. Maybe we should— Investors? Stephen's head snapped up. What investors? I took a deep breath. We're expanding. The River Street development is just the beginning. We're planning to acquire the old factory district and convert it into mixed-use properties. That's a multi-million-dollar project, Michael said, his legal mind clearly running calculations. Try multi-billion, Audrey corrected, and Alex is the majority stakeholder. The room erupted in chaos. Hope started crying about family loyalty. Michael began spouting legal terms. My mother launched into a tirade about deceit and manipulation, but all I could focus on was Stephen's face. When were you going to tell me? He asked softly. I was waiting for the right time. The right time? He laughed bitterly. Like when? When you owned the entire city? That's not fair, I protested. No, you know what's not fair? He gestured around the room. This, all of this, making me look like an idiot in front of everyone. Did you enjoy it? Watching us all fumble around in the dark while you pulled the strings? Stephen, please. I need some time. He headed for the door. I'll be at Mark's place tonight. The door closed behind him with a finality that made my chest ache. But I couldn't fall apart. Not now. Not in front of them. Well, my mother's voice dripped with satisfaction. I hope you're happy. You've managed to destroy your marriage along with everything else. Actually, Yvette, Audrey stepped in, her voice ice cold. The only thing being destroyed here is the illusion that you could keep belittling Alex forever without consequences. How dare you speak to me that way in my home? It's not your home, I said quietly. It's my property. And speaking of which, I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I think it's time we reviewed everyone's lease terms. You wouldn't, Hope whispered. Try me. I started typing. Maria, please send me the current market rates for comparable units in the area and schedule a building-wide inspection for next week. It's time we ensured all units are up to code. Alexandra, my mother's voice wavered. You're being ridiculous. No, Mother. I'm being a businesswoman. Isn't that what you always wanted? Michael stood up, straightening his tie. This isn't over. We'll have our lawyers review everything. Please do. Audrey smiled. I'm sure they'd love to go up against our legal team. Alex, Hope pleaded, think about what you're doing. I looked around the table at their faces, shocked, angry, betrayed. The family that had dismissed me for years, now suddenly realizing they'd been living in my shadow all along. I have thought about it, I said, standing up. I've thought about it every time you mocked my career, every time you dismissed my achievements, every time you made me feel small. And now? I gathered my purse and nodded to Audrey. Now I'm done thinking. It's time for action. As we walked toward the door, my mother called out, You'll regret this. I turned back one last time. No, Mother, the only thing I regret is not doing this sooner. The door closed behind us, and for the first time that evening, I allowed myself to smile. The truth was finally out, but somehow this felt less like an ending and more like a beginning. The next morning, my phone exploded with notifications. 17 missed calls from my mother, 23 text messages from Hope, and 1 email from Michael's law firm. They work fast, Audrey commented, reading over my shoulder in our office. But their threats are empty. Everything's ironclad. It's not the legal threats I'm worried about. I showed her the latest text from Steven. We need to talk. Coming by the office at noon. Want me to stay? No, I need to handle this myself. I rubbed my temples. How's the damage control going? Your mother's been calling every tenant in the building, trying to rally support. Audrey smirked. Turns out people aren't too keen on backing someone against their landlord. My phone buzzed again. Hope. Mom's having a breakdown. How could you do this to her? Delete, I muttered, swiping the message away. Any word from the investors? They're still in. Actually, they're more interested now that they know you're not just some silent partner. The whole secret successful woman angle is apparently very appealing. A knock at the door made us both look up. Steven stood there, looking tired but determined. I'll give you two some privacy, Audrey said, gathering her papers. Steven took her vacant seat, his eyes taking in my corner office with its floor-to-ceiling windows and city views. So this is where you really work, he said finally. Steven, let me finish. He held up a hand. I spent all night thinking about this, about us, about why you felt you needed to hide everything. I didn't hide it because of you, I said softly. Didn't you? He leaned forward. We've been married for 5 years, Alex. 5 years of me thinking we were equals, partners. And all this time, we are equals, I protested. Your career is just as successful. My career? He laughed. I'm up for partner at my firm, sure. But you own half the city. You're about to close $1 billion deal. How is that equal? Money isn't everything. No, but trust is. He pulled out his phone. Did you know your mother sent me your company's financial records this morning? Trying to prove you've been deceiving me about our prenup? My stomach dropped. Steven, I can explain. You don't have to. I already knew you had separate assets. I respected that. What I can't respect is the lying. I never lied. Lies of omission are still lies, Alex. His voice rose, then he caught himself. Do you know how foolish I feel? All those times I defended you to your mother, telling her you were doing well in your small business. I was the biggest joke of all. You weren't a joke? I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. I needed something that was mine. Something they couldn't criticize or control. And what am I in all this? Just another pawn in your game? Of course not. I love you. Do you? He stood up. Because from where I'm standing, you love power more than honesty. A knock at the door interrupted us. Maria poked her head in. "Ms. Whitfield, your mother's in the lobby, demanding to see you. Security's asking what to do." I closed my eyes briefly. "Tell them to escort her out, and have legal draw up a formal warning about harassment." "You're having your own mother thrown out?" Stephen shook his head. "Listen to yourself. What choice do I have? She's trying to undermine my business, my marriage." "Your business?" He laughed bitterly. "That's all you care about, isn't it? Well, congratulations. You've won. You've proven you're better than all of us. I hope it was worth it." "Stephen, please. I'll have my lawyer contact you about the divorce proceedings." The word hit me like a physical blow. "Divorce? You can't be serious." "Actually, I am. For the first time, I see you clearly." He walked to the door, then paused. "You know what's ironic? Your mother always said you'd never amount to anything. Turns out you amounted to exactly what she is. Someone who values control over love." He left before I could respond. Through the glass walls, I watched him walk past the reception area, past Audrey returning with coffee, past the AW Properties logo I'd worked so hard to build. My phone buzzed again. A text from Hope. "Mom's being escorted out by security. I hope you're happy with what you've done to this family." I started to reply, then stopped. What could I say? That I was sorry for succeeding? Sorry for finally standing up for myself? Sorry for... "Alex?" Audrey stood in the doorway. "The investors are here early. Should I reschedule?" I straightened my spine, wiped my eyes, and stood up. "No, show them in." "Are you sure? After what just happened?" "What just happened is exactly why I built all this," I said, gesturing to the office. "So I'd never have to depend on anyone else's approval again." But as I walked to the conference room, my mother's words echoed in my head. "You'll regret this." The question was, had I already started to? 3 days after the investor meeting, I sat in my office reviewing lease termination notices when Michael walked in unannounced. "Your security team needs work," he said, dropping into the chair across from me. "I just told them I was your lawyer." "You're not my lawyer, Michael. And impersonating one is a crime." "Speaking of crimes," he pulled out a folder. "I've been doing some digging." "Of course you have." I didn't look up from my computer. "How's Mom?" "Having a nervous breakdown thanks to you. Hope's staying with her." "In my apartment, I assume?" Michael's jaw tightened. "About that. These lease termination notices are completely legal." I finally met his eyes. "Your rent is going up to market rate in 60 days. You can either pay it or move out. This is revenge, plain and simple." "No, this is business." I turned my screen around to show him the spreadsheets. "I've been subsidizing your lifestyles for years. Time to end that particular charity." "And Stephen? Is ruining your marriage also business?" My fingers froze over the keyboard. "That's none of your concern." "Actually, it is, because while you've been playing real estate mogul, you've destroyed every relationship you had. Was it worth it? Are you here for a reason, Michael? Besides amateur psychology?" He leaned forward. "I have a proposal." "Not interested." "Hear me out." He opened the folder. "You're planning to develop the old factory district, but there's a problem with the zoning laws that your team missed." I raised an eyebrow. "And?" "And I can help you navigate it, in exchange for some considerations." "You mean blackmail?" "I mean family taking care of family." He smiled thinly. "Keep our rents where they are. Back off this vindictive campaign against your mother, and I'll make sure your development goes through smoothly." I started laughing. I couldn't help it. "Something funny?" he asked. "Actually, yes." I pulled out my own folder. "You see, I knew you'd try something like this, so I had my actual lawyers look into your firm's handling of the zoning board." His smile faltered. "Interesting reading," I continued. "All those private meetings, the convenient rezoning decisions. I wonder what the ethics board would make of it." "You're bluffing." "Try me." I stood up. Now, about those lease terminations. My office door burst open. Hope stormed in, her face streaked with tears. You heartless bitch. Hope, Michael started. No, she needs to hear this. Hope slammed her hands on my desk. Mom's in the hospital. Anxiety attack. Are you happy now? I felt a flicker of concern, quickly suppressed. That's unfortunate, but nothing. You did this. You and your stupid revenge plot. Revenge? I laughed again, but it sounded hollow even to me. I'm just running my business. Your business? Hope's voice rose hysterically. What about your family? What about Stephen? Stephen made his choice. No, you made it for him when you decided money and power were more important than love. My phone buzzed. A text from Audrey. Stephen's lawyer just delivered the divorce papers. Want me to handle it? Get out, I said quietly. What? Hope blinked. Both of you, get out of my office. You have 60 days to find new apartments. If you can't afford market rate, I suggest you start looking now. Michael stood slowly. You'll regret this, Alex. When you're alone with nothing but your money. I said get out. I pressed the security button under my desk. And next time you try to impersonate my lawyer, I'll have you reported to the Bar Association. 2 security guards appeared almost instantly. Hope let them lead her out, still crying. Michael followed more slowly, pausing at the door. You know what's sad, he said. You've become exactly what you always hated about your mother. Cold, controlling, and completely alone. After they left, Audrey came in with coffee and a concerned expression. I heard shouting. You okay? Fine. I stared at the divorce papers on my desk. Have legal review these, and schedule an inspection of Mom's unit for tomorrow. Alex. Audrey sat down. Maybe we should take a step back. Consider what? Letting them win? Backing down? Considering that maybe, just maybe, you're letting this revenge thing go too far. I picked up the lease termination notices, my hands shaking slightly. It's not revenge. It's consequences. Is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks a lot like you're burning every bridge you've ever built. My phone buzzed again. A message from Stephen. Sign the papers. Hope you find what you're looking for. I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of everything I'd gained and lost in the past week. The investors loved your presentation, Audrey said softly. The Factory District project is going to make you one of the most powerful developers in the city. Yeah, I whispered, looking at Stephen's message again. But at what cost? A week later, I stood in my mother's empty apartment, surrounded by the echoes of family dinners and bitter arguments. She'd been discharged from the hospital yesterday and moved in with Hope, leaving behind 30 years of memories and a hastily scrawled note. I hope you're satisfied. The inspection team found code violations, Audrey said, flipping through her tablet. Unauthorized modifications to the electrical system, non-compliant bathroom renovations. She always did think rules didn't apply to her. I ran my finger along the dining room table where everything had fallen apart. Alex? A familiar voice called from the doorway. Stephen. I'll give you 2 a minute, Audrey said, squeezing my arm as she left. Stephen looked different, tired. He'd loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, something he only did when stressed. Your lawyer said you haven't signed the papers, he said. Been busy. I gestured around the empty apartment. Family drama, you know? I heard about your mom, the hospital. Did you also hear about the illegal renovations? The attempts to blackmail me, Stop. He held up his hand. Just stop. This isn't you. Isn't it? Everyone seems pretty convinced I'm turning into my mother. No. He stepped closer. Your mother would never have built something like this. She tears things down. You used to build things up. Used to? Before this revenge campaign took over your life. He picked up the note from the table. Was it worth it? Winning? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Hope's name flashed on the screen. Aren't you going to answer it? Stephen asked. I did, putting it on speaker. Hello? Mom's getting worse. Hope's voice cracked. The doctors say it's severe anxiety and depression. She keeps saying she has nothing left to live for. That's manipulative, even for her. God, listen to yourself. Hope shouted. Your own mother is falling apart and you're acting like it's a business transaction gone wrong. What do you want from me, Hope? I want my sister-in-law back. The one who helped me move into my first apartment. The one who supported me when I lost my job. Not this monster who cares more about power than people. Stephen watched me, his expression unreadable. I'm not a monster, I said quietly. I'm just what? Successful? Powerful? Alone? Hope's voice broke. Congratulations, you've won. Mom's broken, Michael's firm is investigating him for ethics violations, and Stephen's leaving you. I hope your empire was worth it. The line went dead. She's right, you know, Stephen said softly. This isn't about business anymore. It's about punishment. They deserved it, I whispered, but the words felt hollow. Did they? Did I? He moved closer. The Alex I married wanted success to prove something to herself, not to destroy others. I didn't destroy. Really? He pulled out his phone, showing me social media posts. My mother looking frail in a hospital bed. Hope's tearful updates about family tragedy. Michael's cryptic posts about betrayal. They're playing the victims? I protested. No, they're being human. Something you seem to have forgotten how to be. My phone buzzed again. Audrey. Investors want to meet. Something about concerns over negative publicity. Perfect. I laughed bitterly. Even the empire is starting to crumble. Good, Stephen said. Good? Yes, good. Because maybe now you'll remember what really matters. What's that supposed to mean? It means I didn't fall in love with AW Properties. I fell in love with Alexandra, the woman who wanted to build something meaningful, not tear everything down out of spite. I sank into a dining room chair, the same one I'd sat in during that fateful dinner. I don't know how to fix this. Yes, you do. He sat across from me. You're a builder, Alex. You've always been good at fixing broken things. The question is, do you want to fix this, or do you want to keep breaking it? My phone buzzed again. Another message from Hope. Mom's asking for you. Stephen stood up. The divorce papers are still on your desk, but so is the key to fixing all of this. Your choice. He walked to the door, then paused. You know what the difference is between you and your mother? I looked up. She tears things down because she's afraid of being small. You build things up because you know how big you really are. At least you used to. After he left, I sat in the empty apartment, surrounded by the consequences of my actions. The empire I'd built suddenly felt as hollow as the rooms around me. My phone lit up one more time. A photo from Hope. My mother in her hospital bed, looking small and defeated, clutching an old family photo of us. And for the first time since this all began, I felt something crack inside me. Maybe it was time to build something new, something better. The hospital corridor seemed endless as I walked toward my mother's room, clutching a folder of papers. Hope sat outside, her eyes widening when she saw me. What are you doing here? Fixing things. I held up the folder. New lease agreements. Original rates guaranteed for 5 years. She stared at me. Is this another game? No games. I took a deep breath. Just a daughter who needs to talk to her mother. Hope stood up slowly. She's awake, but if you upset her, I won't, I promise. My mother looked small in the hospital bed, nothing like the commanding presence who'd terrorized family dinners. She didn't look up when I entered. Mom, come to evict me from the hospital too? Her voice was weak, but still carried that familiar bite. Actually, I sat down. I came to show you something. I pulled out my phone, opening a photo album. Remember this? She glanced over. It was a picture of me at 12, proudly showing off a treehouse I'd built. You said it would fall apart, I continued. But it didn't, because even then I knew how to build things that last. Alexandra, let me finish. You were right about one thing. I did become like you. I showed her another photo, the first property I'd bought. I got so focused on proving myself that I forgot what I was trying to prove. That you're better than me? She asked bitterly. No, that I'm different from you. I opened the folder. These are new lease agreements, for everyone, same rates as before. She finally looked at me properly. Why? Because winning doesn't feel like winning anymore. I placed the folder on her bed. I don't want an empire built on revenge. That's not who I am. And who are you? Someone who builds things up instead of tearing them down. I pulled out one more document, including this. She took it with trembling hands, blueprints for the factory district development. Senior living apartments, I explained, with a community center, named after you. I don't understand. I'm tired of fighting, Mom. Tired of proving points. I want to build something meaningful. The door opened. Stephen stood there, surprise crossing his face. Sorry, he said. I didn't know. Stay, I said quickly. Please. He hesitated, then entered. My mother looked between us. The divorce papers, she said softly. Did you sign them? No. I pulled them out, torn in half. Because Stephen was right. I'm a builder, not a destroyer. Alex, Stephen started. I know it won't fix everything, I continued. But I want to try. To rebuild what matters. My mother touched the blueprints again. Why name it after me? Because despite everything, you taught me my most valuable lesson. The difference between power and strength. Power tears things down. Strength builds them up. Hope appeared in the doorway, Michael behind her. Is this real? Michael asked, gesturing to the lease papers. No tricks? No tricks. I stood up. I'm offering a fresh start. For all of us. Just like that? Hope's voice was skeptical. No, not just like that. We'll need rules, boundaries, real relationships, not power plays. I looked at my mother. Starting with honest conversations. I don't know how, my mother whispered. Neither do I, but I know how to build things. Maybe we start there. Stephen moved closer, taking my hand. Together? Together. I squeezed his hand, then addressed the room. I'm not giving up my success. I worked too hard for it, but I want it to mean something more than revenge. The community center? My mother said slowly. Could I help with the planning? I'd like that. I smiled. You always did have an eye for design. Hope wiped her eyes. What about family dinners? New tradition? I suggested. Everyone cooks. Everyone contributes. No more power plays. And the building? Michael asked. Stays under my management, but with open communication, proper channels for complaints, and mutual respect. My mother reached for my hand. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, she looked at me without judgment. You really did build something amazing, she said softly. I'm still building, I replied. And this time I want to build it right. Stephen wrapped an arm around me. That's the Alex I married. Looking around the room, at Stephen's proud smile, Hope's cautious hope, Michael's thoughtful expression, and my mother's tears, I realized something. Success wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about proving to yourself that you could be right. So, I said, pulling out my phone. Who wants to see the preliminary designs for the community center? As my family gathered around, offering suggestions and actually listening to each other, I felt something shift. This wasn't an ending. It wasn't even really a new beginning. It was simply the next floor in something I'd been building all along. A legacy of strength, not power. And this time, I was building it with the right blueprints.
I'm Emily, 35, and if you'd asked me a few years ago, I'd have told you my life was just about perfect. I was climbing the corporate ladder at a renowned company, making my way to a department manager position. It was during those long hours at work that I stumbled upon something unexpected, something that wasn't part of my meticulously planned career path. Love. His name was Jake, a colleague from a different department. He wasn't as high up on the career ladder as I was, but that never mattered to me. Our connection was instant, and before we knew it, our office romance blossomed into something deeper, leading us down the aisle. The company we worked for was supportive. After all, it wasn't a secret affair, but a serious relationship that everyone could see was genuine. We were happy, living in a beautiful, spacious house that we bought together. It was more than a home. It was a symbol of our future, of the family we dreamed of starting. But our seemingly perfect life wasn't without its cracks. The main issue? Our earnings. I always earned more than Jake, and while it never bothered me, it was a thorn in his side. One chilly evening, as we sat in our living room, Jake brought it up yet again. Does it ever get to you? The whole money thing? He asked, his gaze fixed on the dancing flames in the fireplace. No, Jake, it really doesn't. I love you, not your paycheck. We're in this together, remember? I replied, trying to reassure him. He let out a long sigh. I just feel like I should be the one bringing in more, you know? It's not traditional. I reached for his hand, giving it a gentle squeeze. We're not a traditional couple, Jake. We make our own rules. We're happy, aren't we? He nodded, but his eyes didn't mirror the conviction in his voice. The topic was a recurring one, resurfacing every now and then, each time leaving a faint but lingering unease in the air. Life has a way of throwing you off course when you least expect it. That's exactly what happened to me, Emily, on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday. It was supposed to be a routine medical checkup, nothing more. I sat there in the sterile doctor's office, fidgeting with the hem of my shirt, waiting for the usual all clear. Instead, what I got was a jolt that turned my world upside down. The doctor, a kind-faced woman in her 50s, had a serious look as she delivered the news. Emily, I'm sorry to tell you this, but you have cancer, she said gently. For a moment, everything stood still. The word cancer echoed in my head like a dreadful bell. Fear, disbelief, a sense of unreality washed over me. What? Are you sure? I managed to stammer, feeling my heart pounding in my chest. The doctor nodded, her expression empathetic. I understand this is a lot to take in. We need to discuss your treatment options. Her voice faded into the background as I grappled with the shock. Cancer? Me? It didn't make sense. I was healthy, or so I thought. When I left the doctor's office, I felt like I was in a daze. The world seemed to go on around me, but I was stuck in that moment of devastating revelation. I called Jake as soon as I could. He answered after a few rings. Hey Em, how did the checkup go? His voice was casual, expecting routine news. Jake, it's not good, I said, my voice shaky. What's wrong? Talk to me, Em, he replied, his tone shifting to concern. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. It's cancer, Jakey. I have cancer. There was a heavy silence on the other end. Then, oh God, Em, I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Where are you? I'm still at the clinic. I'm not okay, Jakey. I'm scared, I admitted, feeling a lump forming in my throat. I'll come right over. We'll face this together, Em. You're not alone, he said firmly. Hearing his words, a small flicker of hope ignited within me. Maybe, just maybe, we could get through this nightmare together. The following days were a blur of appointments, tests, and consultations. I started my treatment, which included chemotherapy. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally. Jake was supportive at first, accompanying me to my sessions, holding my hand, trying to be strong for both of us. But as the treatments took a toll on me, I noticed a change in Jake. His visits became less frequent, his reassurances felt more forced. Whenever I asked him why he couldn't come, he always had the same excuse. Work is just crazy right now, Em. I'm so tired by the end of the day, he'd say over the phone. I tried to understand, to be sympathetic. After all, he was dealing with this in his own way, too. But deep down, I couldn't shake off the feeling of growing distance. the creeping sense of loneliness that started to envelop me. In those moments of solitude and struggle, I found an unexpected source of strength. My parents and my best friend, Lisa. They were my rocks, calling me daily, visiting me whenever they could, offering words of encouragement and love. While I was trying to adjust to my new reality in the hospital, undergoing treatment and dealing with the side effects, life outside continued. I missed our home, the comfort of our bed, the little rituals Jake and I had. Despite his decreasing visits, I clung to the hope that we were still a team. One day, Lisa came to visit. She brought some magazines, my favorite snacks, and a sense of normalcy that I craved. But there was something off about her. She seemed uneasy. "Hey, what's up? You seem a bit distracted," I said, trying to read her expression. Lisa hesitated before speaking. "Emily, I don't want to worry you, but something strange happened the other day." My heart skipped a beat. "What happened?" "Well, I was walking past your house, and I heard laughter. Loud, female laughter. It sounded like there was a party or something," she said cautiously. A cold shiver ran down my spine. "A party?" But Jake didn't mention anything. Maybe he had friends over. Lisa bit her lip, looking uncomfortable. "I don't know, Emily. It just felt weird. And I haven't seen Jake around much lately. I'm worried there might be someone else." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I didn't want to believe it, but the seeds of doubt were planted. Was Jake seeing someone else while I was stuck here, fighting for my life? "I need to know, Lisa. I can't just sit here wondering," I said, a sense of urgency rising within me. "I understand. But what are you going to do?" Lisa asked, her concern evident. "I need to go home. I need to see for myself," I decided, my mind made up. "But Emily, your treatment—" "I know. But I can't ignore this." "I have to know the truth," I interrupted, feeling a mix of anger, betrayal, and fear. Lisa helped me arrange for an early discharge. The doctors weren't thrilled, but my recent results were promising, and they agreed under the condition that I would continue my treatment on an outpatient basis. The drive home was nerve-wracking. Every possible scenario played out in my mind. I was scared of what I might find, yet I needed answers. As we pulled up to the house, everything looked normal from the outside. But the moment we stepped in, it was clear something was off. The place felt different, like it wasn't ours anymore. We heard voices coming from the living room. My heart pounded in my chest as we walked in, bracing for what we might find. To my utter shock, there was a couple sitting there, looking as surprised to see us as we were to see them. "Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" I demanded, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and disbelief. The woman, probably in her late 30s, stood up. "I'm sorry, but who are you? We're renting this place." "Renting? This is my house. I live here with my husband, Jake," I said, struggling to process her words. The man, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "We've been here for a couple of weeks. We made a deal with Jake. He said the house was going to be sold, and we're interested in buying it." My world came crashing down at that moment. Not only was there another woman in my house, but now I was being told that my husband, the man I trusted, was planning to sell our home without my knowledge. I felt like I was in a nightmare, one that I couldn't wake up from. As I stood in the living room of what was once a symbol of our shared dreams, the couple who had unwittingly walked into this mess looked at me with a mix of confusion and pity. They introduced themselves as Mark and Sandra, clearly uncomfortable but trying to be polite. I could hardly focus on their words. My mind was in turmoil. "Please, can you call Jake? I need to speak to him," I said, my voice shaky but firm. Mark nodded, taking out his phone. "Of course, I have his number. He said to call if we needed anything." The wait for Jake to arrive was agonizing. My heart raced with a cocktail of emotions: anger, betrayal, disbelief. When he finally walked in, the look on his face was one of shock, but not the kind I expected. "Emily, what are you doing here? You should be in the hospital," he said, his voice tinged not with concern, but annoyance. His reaction only fueled my anger. "What am I doing here? Jake, what are you doing? Selling our house behind my back?" He had the audacity to look irritated. "I can explain, Emily. It's simple, really." "Explain?" Explain how you could betray me like this? My voice was rising despite my efforts to control it. Jake's expression hardened. Listen, Emily, you're sick. The cancer might not even go away. I have to think about my life too. I can't be tied down, waiting for whatever comes next. I felt like I had been slapped. His words were cruel, unrecognizable from the man I thought I knew. You're talking about selling our home, our life together, as if it's just a transaction. Is this really you, Jake? Disbelief and hurt were evident in my voice. He shrugged, a cold look in his eyes. It's practical, Emily. You're not going to make it, and I need the money to build my life. Besides, I would get this house anyway if you know. His words were like a knife twisting in my gut. The reality of his betrayal was worse than any suspicion I had harbored. I can't believe you, Jake. After everything, this is what it comes down to. Money and convenience? I was struggling to hold back tears. Jake seemed unfazed. Life goes on, Emily. Yours might not, but mine will. I need to think about my future. His brazenness left me speechless. I had imagined many scenarios, but nothing could have prepared me for the callousness I was witnessing. And you think you'll just get away with this? Selling our house? Leaving me with nothing while I'm fighting for my life? My voice trembled with a mixture of rage and pain. He shrugged again, a gesture that now filled me with revulsion. I'm doing what I have to. You can do whatever you want, Emily. It doesn't matter to me anymore. I felt a surge of resolve amidst the chaos of my emotions. I'll fight you on this, Jake, and the company will hear about how you treat your sick wife. You won't get away with this, he scoffed. Do what you want, Emily. I'm done here. With that, he turned and left, leaving a trail of coldness behind. I stood there, shaken to my core, realizing that the man I loved was a stranger to me now. I knew at that moment that this was a battle I had to fight, not just for my health, but for justice and dignity. After Jake left, a heavy silence filled the room. Mark and Sandra stood awkwardly, clearly wanting to escape the tense atmosphere. I couldn't blame them. Look, I'm really sorry about all this. We had no idea, Mark said, sounding genuinely apologetic. Yeah, we just wanted a place to stay. We didn't know about everything, Sandra added, her eyes full of sympathy. I gave them a weak smile. It's not your fault. You were just looking for a home. They offered to leave, but I insisted they stay. It wasn't their fault that Jake had dragged them into his deceit. After they left, I sat down on the couch, my mind racing. I felt betrayed, angry, and helpless. But amidst all those emotions, a fiery determination was taking shape. I wasn't going to let Jake walk all over me. The next morning, I called my lawyer and explained everything. He was shocked, but promised to help me fight this. Don't worry, Emily. We'll make sure he doesn't get away with this, he assured me. I felt a small glimmer of hope. With my lawyer's help, I would fight for what was rightfully mine. Next, I knew I had to confront Jake at work. It wasn't going to be easy, but I needed to face him. I wanted him to know that I wasn't going to back down. I arrived at the office, my heart pounding. As I walked through the halls, I could feel the eyes of my colleagues on me. They knew something was up. I knocked on Jake's office door and pushed it open without waiting for a response. Jake looked up, his face a mask of surprise and annoyance. Emily, what are you doing here? I'm here to tell you that I know everything. And I'm not going to let you get away with it, I said, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. Jake scoffed. What are you going to do? You're sick, Emily. You should be resting, not causing a scene. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. I've spoken to my lawyer. We're going to fight you on the house, and I'm going to tell the bosses about what you've done. Jake's face hardened. You think you can scare me? Go ahead, tell them, see if I care. I met his gaze squarely. I'm not trying to scare you, Jake. I'm telling you what I'm going to do. You can't just throw me away because I'm sick. Jake leaned back in his chair, a smug look on his face. You really think you can win this? I'm not the bad guy here, Emily. I'm just trying to move on with my life. I felt a surge of anger. By selling our home? By leaving me with nothing? Jake shrugged. Life is tough, Emily. You should know that better than anyone. I shook my head, disgusted. I can't even recognize you anymore, Jake. You're not the man I married. Jake's expression didn't change. maybe you never really knew me at all." With that, I turned and walked out of his office. I had said what I needed to say. Now it was time to fight. In the days that followed, my life turned into a whirlwind of paperwork, meetings, and strategy sessions. My health was improving, but my battle was far from over. With each passing day, I gathered more evidence to support my claim to the house. My larger financial contribution was a strong point in my favor, and I was determined to see this through. My lawyer was optimistic. "Emily, you have a solid case. The numbers don't lie, and given the circumstances, it's unlikely a judge will side with Jake," he assured me over the phone. The relief I felt was palpable. "Thank you," I replied. "I appreciate your help more than you know." "We're not there yet, but things are looking up," he cautioned. I understood. The legal world was unpredictable, but for the first time in a while, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. At work, the atmosphere was tense. My confrontation with Jake had become office gossip. Some colleagues whispered in corners, others offered quiet support. It was uncomfortable, but I couldn't let it distract me. I decided to meet with our bosses and lay everything out. It was a tough conversation, but necessary. I told them about Jake's betrayal, the house, everything. They listened, their faces a mixture of shock and empathy. "We're so sorry, Emily. This is unacceptable," one of them said. "The situation with Jake will be dealt with. This behavior can't be tolerated," the other added. Hearing their support was a relief. I didn't have to face Jake at work anymore. Days later, they called to tell me they had let Jake go. His actions didn't align with the company's values. It was a small victory, but it meant the world to me. My health was on the upswing, the treatments were working, and my doctors were hopeful. It was a glimmer of hope in a sea of chaos. One evening, as I sat in my small rental, contemplating my next steps, my phone rang. It was Jake. I hesitated but answered. "Emily, please, we need to talk." He sounded desperate. "What's there to talk about, Jake?" I asked, my voice firm. "I was wrong. I've been fired. I'm sorry, Emily. I didn't think it would come to this," he said, almost pleading. I took a deep breath. "You hurt me, Jake. Deeply. I can't just forget that." "I know, I regret it. Can we find a way to settle this without going to court?" he asked, sounding beaten. After a short pause, I replied, "I will not back down. Never." There was silence on the other end. "I understand. I'll have my lawyer contact yours," he finally said. Jake's call didn't change anything. He had shown his true colors, and there was no going back. I was a different person now, stronger and more determined. After the dust settled with the house and my divorce, I found myself standing at the beginning of a new chapter. It was a strange feeling, like stepping into the unknown after a long, turbulent journey. My health was improving, but the road to full recovery was still ahead of me. One afternoon, I was at the clinic for a checkup. The waiting room was quiet, just the hum of the air conditioner filling the space. When the nurse called my name, I followed her to the examination room. Dr. Simmons, my oncologist, greeted me with a warm smile. "Good to see you, Emily. How are you feeling?" "Better, thank you," I replied, taking a seat. "That's what we like to hear," he said, going over my chart. "Your latest scans show improvement. The treatment is working." I exhaled a sigh of relief. "That's great news." "Yes, but remember, it's a long road. You need to take care of yourself," he reminded me. "I know, and I will," I assured him. He nodded, satisfied. "Good. We'll keep monitoring your progress." Leaving the clinic, I felt a mix of emotions. Hope, certainly, but also a sense of responsibility. This was my life, and I had to take charge of it. Back at work, I threw myself into my projects. It was a distraction, but also a reminder that I had a purpose beyond my illness and personal troubles. One day, I was in the break room when I overheard a couple of colleagues talking. "Did you hear about Jake? He's trying to get his job back," one of them said. "Really? After what he did?" "Good luck with that," the other replied. I stayed silent, stirring my coffee. Jake's choices were his own. I had my path to follow, and it didn't include him. After work, I met up with my friend Sarah for dinner. She had been a rock throughout everything. "How are you holding up?" she asked as we sat down. "I'm okay, taking it one day at a time," I answered. That's all you can do, and hey, you're doing amazing, she said, offering a reassuring smile. I nodded. Thanks, I couldn't have done it without your support. We're in this together, she said, raising her glass. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, I echoed, clinking my glass with hers. The next few months were a blend of routine and small victories. Each doctor's visit brought good news. My strength was returning, and with it, a newfound determination to live life on my terms. The treatments had worked, and the doctors were optimistic. I was officially in remission. As I walked into the office that morning, I felt a sense of pride. I had not only kept my job through the toughest times, but also excelled. My team greeted me with warm smiles and congratulations. The workday was busy, but I didn't mind. Being productive gave me a sense of normalcy. Later, I met Sarah for lunch. She had been more than a friend. She was my pillar of strength. You look radiant, Emily, she said as we sat down at our favorite cafe. I feel it too, Sarah. It's like a new beginning, I responded, smiling. And you deserve every bit of it. So, what's next for you? She asked, sipping her coffee. I've been thinking about that. I want to give back, maybe volunteer at the cancer center. Share my story, help others. I said, the idea resonating with me more and more. That's wonderful, Emily. You'll be amazing at it, she encouraged. After lunch, I went for a walk in the park. The sun was shining and the air was fresh. I took a moment to sit on a bench and just breathe. Life was precious, and I was here, living it. As I walked back home, my phone rang. It was my boss, Mr. Thompson. Emily, good news. The board has approved your proposal for the new project, he said. That's fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. I won't let you down, I replied, excitement building up. I know you won't. Keep up the good work, he said, before ending the call. Back at home, I reflected on my journey. From the shock of my diagnosis to the betrayal and divorce, it had been a roller coaster of emotions. But here I was, standing tall. I decided to write a blog post, sharing my story with the world. As I typed, the words flowed effortlessly. It was a story of pain, resilience, and ultimately, triumph. When I hit publish, I felt a sense of liberation. My story was out there, and if it could inspire even one person, it was worth it.
I grew up knowing Lucas, mostly from a distance. We were from the same neighborhood, and our paths often crossed on the street, but our worlds were vastly different. I came from a simple family. We didn't have much, but we had each other. Lucas, on the other hand, was part of the well-known Grayson family, who owned the largest company in town. Everyone knew them, and almost everyone envied them. One day, as I was walking home from my job at the local grocery store, Lucas approached me. It was unexpected. We barely spoke before this. "Hey, Tiffany," he greeted, flashing a smile that made many girls in our town go weak in the knees. "Hi, Lucas," I replied, a bit surprised. "How are you?" "Good, thanks. Look, I was wondering if you'd like to grab a coffee tomorrow." The invite took me off guard. "Coffee? With you?" "Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for years, but never really talked. I'd like to change that. What do you say?" I hesitated, then said, "All right, why not?" From that day, things moved quickly. Our coffee date turned into dinners, movie nights, and long walks. We spent days getting to know each other. The more time I spent with him, the more I realized we had a lot in common. One evening, as we were walking by the river, Lucas turned to me and said, "Tiffany, these past few weeks with you have been amazing. I've never felt this way about anyone before." I looked up at him. "Lucas, this is all so new to me. I never expected any of this." He took my hands in his. "Neither did I. But now that we're here, I don't want to let you go." Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Before I knew it, Lucas was on one knee holding out a simple ring. "Tiffany, will you marry me?" Tears filled my eyes. "Yes, Lucas. Yes, I will." The news of our engagement spread quickly. Everyone was surprised.
No one saw it coming, but here we were, two people from different worlds, finding love in the most unexpected place. As the wedding preparations began, I couldn't help but feel like I was living in a dream. The Grayson family was beyond supportive. They welcomed me with open arms, especially Lucas's mother, Mrs. Harriet Grayson. She was thrilled about our union and took charge of most of the wedding arrangements. "Tiffany," she said to me one day, "I want you to have the best wedding. You're going to be a Grayson now." "Thank you, Mrs. Grayson. I never imagined any of this," I replied, overwhelmed. "You deserve it, dear. Lucas is lucky to have you." The big day arrived sooner than we expected. As I stood at the altar, looking at Lucas, I felt grateful for this unexpected turn my life had taken. Little did I know, things were about to change in ways I could never have anticipated. The move to our new home was swift, just days after our wedding. It was a quaint, charming place, not too large, with a hint of vintage charm. Lucas had picked it out, saying it was perfect for us to start our life together. From the moment we stepped in, I felt an unexpected chill, not from the house itself, but from Lucas. The warmth he had exuded throughout our courtship seemed to evaporate. Our rooms echoed with silence, broken only by the mundane conversations about household chores or grocery lists. One evening, after setting up the dinner table, I tried initiating a light conversation. "The house feels cozy, doesn't it? We can maybe get some plants for the balcony?" Lucas, who was absorbed in some paperwork, merely grunted in reply. Sensing his detachment, I attempted to bridge the distance. "Lucas, is everything okay?" He looked up, seemingly irritated. "Yes, why wouldn't it be?" "I just feel you've been distant since we moved in." I hesitated. "Did I do something wrong?" He sighed heavily, avoiding eye contact. "It's nothing. I'm just busy with work." "But you're always here, at home, with me," I pointed out, trying to understand his sudden change. Lucas's voice hardened. "Look, Tiffany, I have a lot on my mind. The marriage, the house, my work responsibilities. It's all a bit overwhelming." I felt a pang in my heart. "I thought we were in this together," I murmured. He didn't respond, just got up and headed to our bedroom, leaving me alone with my thoughts and the now cold dinner. The days that followed were no different. Mornings were a hurried affair, with Lucas often leaving before I was even fully awake. Evenings were cold and silent. I tried engaging him, suggesting we go out or inviting friends over, but he always had an excuse. Mrs. Harriet Grayson, during one of her visits, sensed the tension. "Tiffany," she whispered, pulling me aside, "is everything okay between you two?" I bit my lip, trying to hold back tears. "I don't know, Mrs. Grayson. He's changed." She gave my hand a comforting squeeze. "Give it time, dear. Marriage is a big step. Perhaps he's just adjusting." I nodded, but deep down, doubts were setting in. Was this how my married life was going to be? In the shadow of Lucas's coldness? Determined to find answers, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Days turned into weeks, and the cold atmosphere in our home continued. The initial days of trying to break the ice with Lucas had led to a routine of silence. I'd find myself often staring at the wall, counting the minutes until he'd return home. But when he did, it was as if I was living with a stranger. One evening, I decided to cook his favorite meal, hoping it might cheer him up or at least get him to talk. As I set the table, I thought of our earlier days and how he'd compliment my cooking. Now, the very idea of him sitting to eat with me seemed like a distant dream. Lucas walked in later than usual. I greeted him with a hesitant smile. "Hey, I made your favorite tonight." He glanced at the table and then at me. "I ate out." "Oh," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Okay." There was a moment of silence. "Lucas," I started, my voice firm, "we need to talk." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Not now, Tiffany." "When then?" You've been distant for weeks. I don't even know what's going on in your life anymore." Lucas looked at me, his face expressionless. "It's just work. There's a lot of pressure." I nodded slowly. "But we used to talk, Lucas. We used to share. Now I feel like I'm living with a ghost." Lucas looked away, not meeting my eyes. "I need some space, Tiffany." The words felt like a blow. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. "Space? We live together, Lucas. We're married. If there's a problem, we should be facing it together." He didn't reply, just turned and headed towards our bedroom, leaving me standing there, lost and confused. The next morning, I woke up to find him already gone. The bed was neatly made, and a note lay on the pillow next to mine. "Had to leave early. Don't wait up." Days passed, and the pattern continued. Lucas would leave early and return late, often after I'd gone to bed. We became like two ships passing in the night, with barely any interaction. One afternoon, as I sat in the living room flipping through an old photo album, tears streamed down my face. Pictures of our early days, our smiles, our closeness, seemed like memories from another lifetime. Mrs. Grayson dropped by unannounced. Noticing my tears, she sat next to me, concern evident on her face. "Tiffany, what's going on?" Wiping my tears, I replied, "It's Lucas, Mrs. Grayson. He's changed. I feel so alone." She looked at the pictures and then at me. "Marriage has its ups and downs, dear, but communication is key." I nodded. "I've tried talking to him, but he shuts me out." Mrs. Grayson patted my hand gently. "Then maybe it's time to take a different approach. Find out what's really bothering him." Taking a deep breath, I nodded. "You're right. I need to get to the bottom of this." Determined to uncover the mystery behind Lucas's behavior, I decided it was time to take matters into my own hands. The nights were the hardest. Alone in the vast mansion, I'd often find myself waiting for Lucas to walk through the door. But more often than not, the ticking of the clock was the only sound that kept me company. One evening, after yet another night alone, desperation took over. I decided to call Mrs. Grayson. Perhaps she knew something I didn't. Maybe she could talk some sense into Lucas. "Mrs. Grayson?" I started hesitantly when she picked up the phone. "It's Tiffany. I was hoping to speak with you about Lucas." There was a brief pause, then in a softer tone, she replied, "Oh, Tiffany, what's the matter?" Taking a deep breath, I confessed, "Lucas hasn't been coming home. He's hardly ever here, and I don't know what to do." To my surprise, her tone shifted instantly. "Tiffany, my son has responsibilities, bigger than you might understand. He's managing a massive company, trying to maintain our family's legacy." Stammering, I tried to explain. "I understand, but he doesn't come home. At all. Nights are so lonely." Mrs. Grayson's voice hardened. "You knew what you were getting into when you married him. You need to adjust and be grateful for the life he's providing you." Tears filled my eyes. "I just want our marriage to be how I imagined." There was a cold silence. Then she said, "Lucas mentioned you might be difficult, always wanting more. You should be thankful for what you have, Tiffany." The conversation ended shortly after, leaving me even more bewildered and alone. Whatever Lucas had told his mother had painted me in a terrible light. What was he hiding? Why was he driving this wedge between his family and me? It was clear that I needed answers, and I was determined to find them. I enlisted the help of an old classmate, David, now a private detective. Within days, he presented me with photos that made my heart sink. Days turned into nights, and my sense of isolation grew. Each evening felt like an echo of the previous one. I'd walk through the grand halls, touching the expensive decor, but feeling more disconnected than ever. One gloomy afternoon, while I sat in the drawing room staring blankly at the pouring rain outside, my phone vibrated. It was an unfamiliar number. "Hello?" I said hesitantly. "Tiffany, dear. It's Aunt Margaret, Lucas's aunt." Surprised, I replied, "Oh, hello, Aunt Margaret. It's nice to hear from you." Her voice was warm, but there was a hint of concern. "I just wanted to check in and see how you were feeling, dear. It's been so long since our last chat." I was puzzled. "I'm fine, thank you. Why do you ask?" She hesitated, then said, "Well, Lucas mentioned you'd been struggling lately. He said you'd been having a tough time adjusting and dealing with some personal health issues?" I blinked in confusion. "Health issues?" Aunt Margaret continued. "Yes, he mentioned you were battling severe depression and that he's been so worried about you." The weight of realization hit me. This was the story Lucas was spinning to his family. I felt a mix of anger and disbelief. I don't know where he got that from, Aunt Margaret. I've been lonely, yes, but I'm not suffering from depression." Aunt Margaret sounded genuinely surprised. "Oh, well, he seemed so concerned. He even said he was getting you the best treatment and medications." My mind raced. Not only had Lucas been lying about his whereabouts, but he'd also been crafting an elaborate tale about my supposed condition to his family. Trying to keep my composure, I said, "Thank you for your concern, Aunt Margaret. I'll have to talk to Lucas about this." Before we ended the call, she added, "Well, since you're feeling better, I'd love for you to come to my birthday celebration next week. I'm inviting close family, and it would be lovely to see you." "Of course," I replied, trying to mask the turmoil inside me. "I'd love to." Once the call ended, my emotions were a whirlwind. Lucas's deceit ran deeper than I'd imagined. But Aunt Margaret's invitation gave me an idea. It would be the perfect place to confront him, surrounded by the very family he'd lied to. As I pondered my next moves, I felt a newfound determination. Lucas had woven a web of lies, but I was ready to expose the truth. The festive atmosphere of Aunt Margaret's birthday celebration was in full swing when I decided it was time. As guests laughed and chatted, I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the confrontation. Lucas stood amidst a group, laughing at some joke, appearing to be the perfect son and husband. I approached him, my hands clutching the jars of medication, each one empty. The murmurs of the gathering dimmed as all eyes turned to us. With every step, my resolve hardened. "Lucas," I said, my voice loud enough to command the attention of the room. I placed the medicine jars in front of him, their labels glaringly evident. He glanced at them, his laughter fading, confusion clouding his eyes. "What's this?" he asked, his tone flippant. "These are the medications I'm supposedly on," I responded. "The ones you've been telling everyone you've been buying for me." He stared at them, genuinely puzzled. "Why are you showing me these?" He picked up one jar, examining it before carelessly tossing it onto the floor. "This," I said, pointing at the shattered jar, "is how much you know about my so-called illness. You can't even recognize the medication you claim to buy for me." Whispers swept through the room as realization dawned on the guests. The air grew thick with tension. Lucas's face drained of color. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, but his eyes betrayed his panic. Aunt Margaret stepped forward, her face a mask of shock and anger. "Lucas, is this true? Have you been lying to us about Tiffany's health?" He couldn't respond, cornered by the weight of his deceit. The room was a sea of accusing eyes, each one demanding answers. "I trusted you, Lucas," I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "Not only did you betray me, but you also lied to your family, to everyone who cared about us." He looked down, unable to meet anyone's gaze. The room remained silent, the weight of the revelation sinking in. All the pretense, the stories, the lies, they had finally caught up with him. With the shattered medicine jar as the only sound, the room was thick with tension. Lucas had gone pale, his confident facade crumbled. I wasn't done, though. With one last ace up my sleeve, I took out the pictures David had given me. Pictures that showed Lucas with a woman who wasn't me. "Recognize her?" I asked, handing the pictures to Aunt Margaret, who was closest to me. She looked at them, her eyes widening with recognition and dismay. "Oh no, Lucas, not her," she murmured, more to herself than to anyone else. Lucas shifted uncomfortably, looking like a deer caught in headlights. "What is it, Aunt Maggie?" one of the cousins, Sarah, asked. Aunt Margaret looked up, her expression grave. "This is Isabella Travers. She's well known in our community, for all the wrong reasons." I felt a chill. The way Aunt Margaret said it, it seemed this Isabella had a history with the family. Lucas's mother, Mrs. Grayson, approached and took a look at the photos. The color drained from her face. "I thought you were done with her after—" She stopped, shaking her head. "I can't believe you'd do this to Tiffany, to all of us." Lucas was cornered, looking between the two women with panic evident in his eyes. "Mom, it's not what you think," he started, but Aunt Margaret interrupted him. "We all warned you about her years ago, Lucas. We thought marrying Tiffany would have set you on the right path. Isabella is nothing but trouble." Lucas seemed to shrink, his posture slouched and defeated. "It's not like that. I mean, it started out, but it's complicated." "Complicated?" I echoed, my voice sharp. "You marry me, lie about my health, and all the while you're with her? Explain that complication to me." Lucas opened his mouth, then closed it, no words coming out. He looked broken, defeated, but I felt no sympathy. He had deceived everyone, and it was time for the truth. Aunt Margaret, visibly upset, handed the photos back to me. "Tiffany, I'm so sorry," she said. "You deserve so much better than this." I nodded, looking at the pictures. "Thank you, Aunt Maggie. All I wanted was the truth." The room was filled with murmured conversations as the party guests processed the revelations. Lucas looked around. No friends in sight, no allies to defend him. He had played his games, and now he was facing the consequences. For the first time since this ordeal began, I felt a weight lifting off my shoulders. The truth was out, and I was ready to move forward, away from the lies and deceit that had become my life. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The beauty outside stood in stark contrast to the turmoil that had just occurred inside the Grayson household. I sat on the porch steps, taking a moment to collect my thoughts. David approached me, his usual confident demeanor replaced with genuine concern.
"Are you okay?"
he asked. I looked up, forcing a smile.
"I will be. Thanks for everything, David. Without you, I'd still be in the dark."
He sat down next to me. "I just wish I could have done more. No one should go through what you did." I sighed. "It's done now. All that's left is to move forward." He looked out towards the horizon. "What will you do now?" "I haven't decided," I replied. "But I know I can't stay here. I need a fresh start somewhere away from all this." David nodded. "You deserve happiness, Tiffany. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I smiled, feeling a warmth despite the situation. "Thank you, David." Inside, the murmur of voices continued. Some of the family were angry, some confused, but the truth was out, and everyone knew it. I had no intentions of going back inside. Not now, not ever. My phone buzzed. I pulled it out and saw a message from Mrs. Grayson. "I'm so sorry for what happened. We will refuse Lucas financial support. He can forget about inheriting the family company. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to ask. Take care of yourself." I replied with a simple "thank you" and put the phone back in my pocket. After a while, David stood up. "I should get going. If you ever need anything, Tiffany, just call, okay?" I nodded. "I will. Thanks again, David." He smiled, patting my shoulder reassuringly, and walked away. The house behind me felt cold, unwelcoming. The only thing tying me to it was the memories, and now they were all tainted. The next morning, I packed up my belongings, leaving behind everything that reminded me of Lucas and the life I thought I had. Aunt Margaret offered to help, but I declined. This was something I had to do alone. As I drove away, I didn't look back. The house, Lucas, the lies, they were all behind me. Ahead lay a new journey, new beginnings, and a chance at happiness. The end was also a new beginning. I knew challenges awaited, but I also knew I was strong enough to face them. With each mile I put between myself and the past, the brighter my future looked. The road ahead was open, and I was ready to embark on my next adventure, free from the shadows of deceit. And as I drove into the rising sun, I felt a sense of hope and renewal, knowing that the best was yet to come.
The first time I laid eyes on Michael was at a college seminar. We were both there for extra credits, though our paths were quite different. He was a business major while I was pursuing literature. I was drawn to him from the moment he raised his hand and posed a challenging question to the professor. After class, we found ourselves at the same coffee shop, and from there, it just seemed like the universe wanted us to be together. We chatted about everything, from college, hobbies, to our childhood memories. "I come from a pretty strict background," he mentioned, taking a sip from his cup. "My parents are deeply religious." I remember shrugging. "So? My parents are free thinkers. They always taught me to question everything." Michael laughed. "Sounds like we're from different planets." But despite our differences, there was an undeniable chemistry. We began to see each other more frequently, studying together and exploring the city during the weekends. About 2 years into our relationship, we decided to move in together. It was a practical decision. Our apartments were far from the university, and sharing a place made sense. Plus, we were inseparable by then. However, when Michael broke the news to his parents, it wasn't received well. At a dinner at their house, Mrs. Davis, Michael's mother, was the first to voice her concerns. "Living together before marriage? Michael, you know how we feel about that." Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Mom, times have changed. It's not a big deal." Mr. Davis chimed in. "In our house it is. You're living in sin." I could feel the weight of their stares. Wanting to ease the tension, I said, "We respect your beliefs, but this is our decision. We're adults." Mrs. Davis sighed. "It's just not the way we raised you." Michael took my hand. "Lizzie and I love each other. We want to start our life together, and I hope you can support that." The evening ended on a somber note, but Michael and I were firm in our decision. We found a cozy apartment close to campus and moved in. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. Our bond grew stronger, but the strain with his parents was always in the background, like an old radio playing a sad tune. One evening, as we were settling into our new life, there was a knock on the door. It was Mrs. Davis, holding a pie. "I thought I'd come by and see how you two are doing," she said, looking around with a critical eye. "We're doing great, Mrs. Davis," I replied, trying to be cordial. She sat down, placing the pie on the table. "This is all temporary, right? You'll get married soon?" Michael cleared his throat. "We haven't decided that yet, Mom." As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the constant pressure from Michael's parents started to weigh on us. Our once carefree dates and movie nights began to have a shadow, the looming expectation of marriage. One evening, while we were making dinner together in our tiny kitchen, Michael broached the subject. "Lizzie, have you ever thought about, having a wedding?" I looked up from chopping the vegetables, surprised. "Like, for us? Are you proposing?" He smiled awkwardly, rubbing the back of his neck. "Not exactly. I mean, yes, I want to marry you someday, but right now, it's more about my parents. Maybe if we had a ceremony, they'd back off." I sighed. "So you're saying a wedding without the legal paperwork?" He nodded. "Just a thought. We can invite friends, make it a fun day. My parents get their wedding, and we get some peace." It wasn't the romantic proposal I'd imagined, but I understood his reasoning. "All right," I said slowly, "but on one condition. We do it our way. No big church wedding, just something small and intimate." Michael grinned, relief evident on his face. "Deal." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparations. We chose a beautiful outdoor venue, invited our close friends and family, and planned a simple but heartfelt ceremony. When we broke the news to his parents, their reaction was surprisingly subdued. "An outdoor wedding?" Mrs. Davis asked, raising an eyebrow. "Well, it's unconventional, but if it means you two are taking the next step, I suppose we can support it." Mr. Davis added, "As long as you're committed to each other, that's what matters." The day of the wedding was sunny and bright. I wore a simple white dress, and Michael looked dashing in his suit. Our friends cheered, and even Michael's parents seemed genuinely happy. During the reception, Mrs. Davis pulled me aside. "Lizzie, I want to apologize," she began, her voice soft. "I know we've been hard on you two, but seeing you together today, I realized that love is what truly matters." I smiled, touched by her words. "Thank you, Mrs. Davis. That means a lot." The day ended on a high note, with everyone dancing and celebrating our love. It felt like we had finally won Michael's parents over, and I hoped this would be a fresh start for us. But as days passed, their daily visits began. They'd drop by unannounced, often with unsolicited advice or thinly veiled criticisms. It was as if the wedding had given them a free pass to interfere in our lives. One evening, as Michael and I were unwinding after a long day, there was a knock at the door. Opening it, I found Mrs. Davis holding a casserole dish. "Just thought I'd drop off some dinner," she said, with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thanks," I replied, taking the dish. "But you don't have to do this." She waved a hand dismissively. "It's no trouble. I just thought, since you're always so busy, you might not have time to cook." I forced a smile, sensing the underlying judgment. "We manage, but thanks anyway." As the door closed, I sighed deeply. Michael wrapped an arm around me. "It'll be okay," he whispered. It started with the subtle comments, the not-so-innocent questions. "Why is the house so messy?" Or, "Have you considered cooking something more nutritious?" Mrs. Davis would ask, her tone dripping with faux concern. One day, I came home from work, exhausted, to find her in our living room, reorganizing our bookshelves. "Mrs. Davis, what are you doing?" I asked, taken aback. She looked up, as if it was the most natural thing in the world. "Just thought I'd help tidy up a bit. These shelves looked so cluttered." Michael entered from the kitchen, holding 2 cups of tea. "Mom's just helping out, Lizzie," he said, trying to play mediator. I took a deep breath, my patience waning. "This is our home, Michael. We didn't ask for help." Mrs. Davis pursed her lips, her eyes watering. "I'm just trying to be helpful. After all, now we're family." Days like these became more frequent. They'd pop by without notice, giving advice we never asked for, criticizing decisions we'd made together as a couple. It was clear they no longer saw boundaries. One evening, after a particularly trying visit from his parents, Michael and I sat down for a heart-to-heart. "Michael, this has to stop," I began, my voice trembling with frustration. "I can't live like this, feeling like I'm constantly being judged in my own home." He ran his fingers through his hair, looking equally stressed. "I know, Lizzie. It's just, they're my parents. I don't know how to tell them to back off without hurting their feelings." I replied, "But what about our feelings? Our peace of mind? We can't keep sacrificing that for them." A week later, we invited them over for dinner, deciding to address the issue head-on. The evening started off pleasantly enough. We chatted about work, friends, and the latest news. But as the main course was served, I took a deep breath and dove in. "Mrs. Davis, Mr. Davis, we invited you over because there's something we need to discuss," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. Mr. Davis looked up, his fork pausing mid-air. "What's the matter?" I exchanged a glance with Michael, who nodded in encouragement. "It's about the frequent visits and, well, the constant input on our lives." Mrs. Davis looked taken aback. "We're just trying to help." Michael took over. "Mom, Dad, We appreciate that you care, but it's becoming overwhelming. We need some space to live our lives, make our mistakes, and grow together." Tears formed in Mrs. Davis's eyes. "After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us?" Mr. Davis added, his voice stern. "We're just looking out for you. It seems Lizzie here doesn't appreciate family." I felt a pang of guilt, but stood my ground. It's not about appreciation. It's about respect, respecting our boundaries and our choices. The room grew silent, the tension palpable. Mrs. Davis dabbed at her eyes with a napkin, her shoulders shaking. "We just wanted to be part of your lives. I never thought it'd come to this." Michael looked torn, his loyalty divided, but he held firm. "Mom, we love you, but this is our life. We need you to understand that." The evening ended with Mrs. Davis in tears, Mr. Davis looking disappointed, and an unspoken agreement that things had to change. As they left, I felt a mix of relief and dread, wondering what the future held for our relationships. Days after the confrontation, the house felt unusually quiet. The constant visits had stopped, but the silence was both a relief and a curse. Every time the doorbell rang or there was a knock, my heart would race, expecting it to be Michael's parents. But it never was. One evening, as Michael and I sat on our couch, he broached the topic. "Lizzie, do you think we were too harsh? I mean, they're my parents. Maybe we overreacted?" I took his hand, feeling its warmth. "Michael, it's not about being harsh. It's about setting boundaries. We did what we had to do." He sighed deeply. "I know, it's just hard. I never imagined being in this situation with them." As days turned into weeks, we began to feel the weight of our decision. There were no more surprise visits, but there were also no calls or messages. It was as if we had cut ties completely. During this period, I often found solace in browsing property listings online. One day, as I was scrolling through, a beautiful house in a neighboring town caught my eye. It had a large garden, a spacious living area, and most importantly, it was far away from our current life. "Michael, come look at this," I called out. He joined me, peering at the screen. "Wow, it's beautiful. But why are you looking at houses?" I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. I was thinking, maybe it's time for a fresh start, somewhere new, where we can create our own memories, away from all this drama. He looked surprised. "You mean move? Leave everything behind?" I nodded. "It's drastic, I know, but maybe it's what we need." We discussed it at length, weighing the pros and cons. The idea of starting anew was enticing, but also terrifying. Yet, the more we talked, the more it felt right. A few weeks later, we visited the house. It was even more beautiful in person, and the neighborhood seemed perfect. After much consideration, I decided to use the money I had inherited from my grandmother to buy it. The day we signed the papers, I felt a mix of emotions. Excitement for the new beginning, but also sadness for what we were leaving behind. The move went smoothly, and soon we were settling into our new home. It felt like a dream. The peace and quiet were just what we needed. One evening, as we were enjoying a quiet dinner in our new dining room, Michael said, "Lizzie, I think this was the best decision we ever made." I smiled, feeling content. I think so too. The first few months in our new home were like a dream. The mornings were quiet, filled with the chirping of birds, and the evenings brought a calm, tranquil energy. Michael and I fell into a comfortable routine, enjoying the privacy and peace that our new surroundings provided. The past seemed like a distant memory, and the tension that once surrounded our lives had all but disappeared. Until one fateful day. I was in the kitchen, preparing dinner, when the doorbell rang. Michael went to answer it. I heard murmurs, and then a familiar voice. My heart sank. It was Mrs. Davis. I walked to the entrance, my face revealing my shock. There they were, Mrs. and Mr. Davis, suitcases in tow, standing at our doorstep. "Mom? Dad? What are you doing here?" Michael asked, his voice filled with surprise. Mrs. Davis smiled, a bit too sweetly. "We missed you, dear, and we thought, why not pay a visit?" I tried to keep my composure. Unexpected. Mr. Davis chimed in. We just wanted to see where our son is living now. Is that so wrong? Michael seemed torn. Of course not, but a heads up would have been nice. Mrs. Davis looked around, her eyes scanning our home. Oh, what a lovely place you have here. Much nicer than the old one. I bristled but said nothing. The visit turned into a stay. One night became 2, then 3. They began to settle in, making themselves comfortable, much like they had in our previous home. One evening, after dinner, I pulled Michael aside. Michael, we can't go down this road again. We moved to escape this. He sighed. I know, Lizzie, but they're my parents. I can't just throw them out. Then what? Let them take over our lives again? Mrs. Davis, who seemed to have overheard our conversation, walked over, her eyes welling up with tears. Is that how you feel, Michael? That we're a burden? Michael looked helplessly at me, then back at his mother. Mom, it's not like that. We just wish you had told us you were coming. She sniffled. We just wanted to be close to our son, but it seems we're not welcome here either. I had a sinking feeling when I heard Michael's parents mention they'd made a decision about their living situation. The two of us had recently been discussing the matter privately, hoping to find a delicate way to address the issue. Now, it seemed the matter was going to be thrust into the open. Lizzie, Michael, Mr. Davis began, we have some news. Michael shifted in his seat, already sensing what was coming. Go on, he prompted. Mrs. Davis, trying to sound cheerful, said, We've sold our house. We realize there's no need for it when we have such a lovely family home here with you two. My eyes widened in shock. You did what? We wanted to be closer to you both, Mr. Davis explained, looking earnest. Mrs. Davis looked hurt. We are family. Why wouldn't you want us here? I took a deep breath and said what I'd wanted to say for a long time. This house, it's mine. It's not owned jointly by Michael and me. It's in my name only. I retrieved a file from the study, showing them the ownership documents. Mrs. Davis looked at the papers and then back at me, clearly stunned. But you're married. What's yours is Michael's and vice versa. I smiled triumphantly. That's where you're mistaken. We held a wedding ceremony, yes, but Michael and I never legally married. We never signed any official documents, so, technically, you're not my in-laws. The weight of my words seemed to hang in the air. Mrs. Davis's face turned a shade paler, her eyes widening in disbelief. Mr. Davis looked from me to Michael, seeking some form of denial. Michael took my hand, signaling his support. It's true, Mom and Dad. We thought you'd be more accepting if we had a ceremony, but we never felt the need to get the state involved in our relationship. Mrs. Davis began to sob. So, you deceived us? And now you're throwing us out? The room was heavy with tension after the bombshells were dropped. Michael's parents were clearly taken aback, but it wasn't long before the shock turned into outrage. So, you tricked everyone with a sham wedding? And you think that makes everything all right? Mrs. Davis's voice had a hint of venom. Michael sighed. It wasn't about tricking anyone. It was about the way we wanted to live our lives. The ceremony was for us, and those who wanted to celebrate our love. Mrs. Davis's face turned a shade redder. You dare defy the sanctity of marriage, live together in sin, and then mock us with a fake wedding. I've had enough, Mr. Davis declared, standing up suddenly. You, young lady, are nothing but a sinner and a witch, trying to pull my son away from his family, his values. I was taken aback by the fierceness of their reaction, but I wouldn't let them intimidate me. I have not taken Michael from anyone. He's made his own choices, and it's high time you respect them. Mrs. Davis's eyes were filled with tears, but her voice was stern. Michael, come home with us. Leave this woman. She's done nothing but pull you into her web of deceit. Michael, ever the calm in the storm, replied, Mom, Dad, I love you both, but my place is here, with her. She's been nothing but kind and understanding, even when you both haven't been. You can't just demand I leave her. You're choosing her over us? Mr. Davis's voice was a mix of anger and disbelief. I'm choosing to live my life on my terms, Michael asserted. The room went silent for what felt like an eternity. The air was thick, every breath heavy. Mrs. Davis's face was a mask of hurt and betrayal. Very well, she said, her voice cold. But remember this, you're turning your back on your family, on your faith, all for her. I'm not turning my back on anyone, Michael said. I just wish you'd see that. Mrs. Davis's eyes were hard, her voice bitter. Let's go, she said to her husband, not giving either of us another glance. And with that, they left, leaving behind a wake of hurt, confusion, and uncertainty. I looked at Michael, his face a mirror of my own feelings. We both knew that things had changed irrevocably, and there was no going back. A few days after the confrontation, as I was heading back from work, my neighbor, Mrs. Carlson, called out to me. She was an older lady, known for her daily walks and her uncanny ability to know everyone's business. Did you hear about the Davis family not selling their house? She asked with a knowing look. I paused, taken aback. What do you mean? She leaned closer, lowering her voice. They never put their house on the market. I heard from Susan, who heard from Janice, who works at the town's real estate office. There's no record of the Davis property being up for sale. I felt a knot form in my stomach. Were they lying to us all this time? When I got home, I shared the information with Michael. He looked shocked. I can't believe they'd lie to us. What were they trying to achieve? We both knew the answer. They wanted to manipulate the situation to their advantage. The realization was a hard pill to swallow. All this time, while we tried to understand and accommodate them, they had been playing a game. Michael sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. This changes things. It's one thing to have disagreements, but outright deception? That's something else entirely. We can't keep letting them pull us into their manipulative games, I said firmly. We need boundaries, strong ones. Michael nodded. You're right. We can't continue like this. It's unhealthy for us and for our relationship. The next day, he went over to his parents' house. He needed to confront them, get some answers. When he returned, his face was a mix of anger and sadness. They admitted it, he began, his voice heavy. They thought that if they moved in with us, we'd be a proper family again. They felt threatened by our independence. We sat down, discussing our next steps. It was clear that for our own sanity and the health of our relationship, we needed distance from them. We need a break, Michael declared. Some time away from all this drama and manipulation. I agreed. It's the best decision for us right now. That evening, we sent a message to his parents, informing them of our decision. The reply was filled with anger and accusations, but we remained firm. We needed this, for ourselves and for our future. The next few weeks were quiet. We focused on each other, rebuilding the trust and closeness that had been strained over the past months. One evening, as we sat on our porch, looking at the stars, Michael turned to me. "Thank you," he whispered, "for standing by me, for fighting for us." I smiled, squeezing his hand. Always. The journey had been long and fraught with challenges, but it was a poignant reminder of the importance of boundaries, honesty, and mutual respect in any relationship. As the night deepened, we looked towards the future, hoping for peace and understanding. From the moment I met Jake, I knew our lives would be a roller coaster. I was always the type to plan everything out. By the time I turned 28, I had a stable job as a lawyer, a nice apartment, and a clear idea of where I wanted my life to go. Financial stability was important to me, and I prided myself on my ability to manage my finances. Jake, on the other hand, was a whirlwind. The first time we met, he had this infectious energy about him that drew me in. He was a tall man with messy brown hair and a carefree smile that could melt anyone's heart. We met at a mutual friend's party. I was discussing a recent case I had won at work, and Jake walked over, drink in hand. "So, you're the famous lawyer Rachel everyone's talking about," he said with a smirk. I raised an eyebrow. "And who might you be?" "The guy who's about to change your life." He winked. Laughing, I replied, "That's a bold statement, but sure, I'll bite. Tell me, how do you plan on doing that?" Over the next few hours, we talked about everything, from our childhood memories to our future dreams. He told me about his love for adventure and how he often went on spontaneous trips just because he felt like it. He said he believed in living in the moment and enjoying every second of life. I found his perspective refreshing. Here I was, someone who always planned ahead, and then there was Jake, someone who took each day as it came. Over the next few months, our relationship blossomed. He introduced me to a world of spontaneity, and I brought a bit of order to his chaos. Our dates were always full of surprises. One day, he would take me out for a fancy dinner, and the next, we would be on a random road trip to nowhere. It wasn't just the fun times that made me fall for him. It was also the way he cared for me. He would always make sure I was okay, and he had this unique ability to make me feel special. One evening, after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find my apartment filled with candles and roses. Jake stood in the middle of the room, a huge grin on his face. "Thought you could use a little pick-me-up," he said. I smiled. "You always know how to make a bad day better." We settled into a routine, and before I knew it, we were talking about moving in together and even getting married. Our relationship had its challenges, especially when it came to our different views on money. I was always careful with my spending, while Jake was more impulsive. "Come on, let's just book that trip to Europe," he would often say. I would reply, "We need to plan it out, Jake. We can't just spend without thinking." He would just roll his eyes. "You worry too much." Despite our differences, we loved each other deeply. So, when he proposed, I said yes without hesitation. I believed that love could overcome any obstacle, and I was ready to start a new chapter of my life with Jake. Meeting the in-laws is always a nerve-wracking experience, but when Jake asked me to join a family dinner, I wasn't just nervous, I was curious. I had already heard snippets about Jake's family and their money habits, and I was eager to get the full picture. Their house was a large, sprawling mansion on the outskirts of the city. As we drove up the long driveway, I noticed the numerous cars parked outside, many of which looked brand new. As we entered, I was greeted with a loud cheer from Jake's relatives. They were a lively bunch, and the house was filled with laughter and chatter. Jake's mother, Linda, was a petite woman with a warm smile. She hugged me tightly and said, "It's so good to finally meet you." I smiled back. "Thank you for having me." Jake's father, Mark, was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a booming voice. "So, you're the lawyer who's captured our Jake's heart," he chuckled, shaking my hand firmly. "It seems that way," I laughed. Dinner was a grand affair. The table was laden with dishes, and wine glasses clinked cheerfully. As we ate, I observed the dynamics of Jake's family. They talked about their recent purchases and the vacations they had been on, or were planning to go on. Money seemed to flow freely in their conversations, and I got the sense that they didn't think twice before spending. Linda mentioned a recent shopping spree in Paris. Mark spoke of a new business venture that required a significant investment. Their younger daughter, Sarah, excitedly chatted about her plans to study abroad. At one point, Jake's older sister, Emily, turned to me. "So, how do you manage your finances? Being a lawyer, you must be earning a lot." I hesitated for a moment before answering. "I try to save and invest wisely. It's important to have a financial safety net." Jake jumped in. "She's the practical one in our relationship." Emily laughed. "Sounds like you two balance each other out." The evening went on, and I could feel the difference in our lifestyles. While I was always cautious about spending, Jake's family seemed to have a live for today mentality. It was clear that they enjoyed the finer things in life and didn't hesitate to indulge. As the night drew to a close, Linda pulled me aside. "You know, dear," she began, "Jake is lucky to have you, but do let him have his fun. Money is meant to be enjoyed." I nodded politely. "Of course. I just believe in being careful." She patted my hand. "Balance is key." As Jake and I drove back home, the weight of our differences hung in the air. I turned to him. "Your family is lovely, but we have very different views on money." Jake sighed. "I know, but love is about compromise, right?" I smiled. "Yes, but compromise doesn't mean losing oneself." Jake reached over and squeezed my hand. "We'll figure it out." But deep down, I couldn't shake off the feeling that our financial differences, combined with the influence of Jake's family, would soon lead to challenges that neither of us were prepared for. And so it happened. We were barely through the front door when the tension in Jake's family home became apparent. The large living room, which I remembered as a place of laughter and chatter during our last visit, was now filled with anxious faces. Everyone was there: Jake's parents, his siblings, and most notably, his younger brother Ryan. I had always found Ryan a bit unpredictable. He was the sort of person who took chances, always believing the next big break was just around the corner. That day, he looked restless, his eyes darting around the room, avoiding direct contact. Without much preamble, Linda, Jake's mother, began, "Thank you for coming on such short notice. We have a serious situation on our hands." Ryan, with a sigh, came forward. "I messed up. I owe the bank $100,000. They're saying they'll take legal action if I don't pay soon." The room erupted in a flurry of questions and exclaims. Jake's hand tightened around mine. He looked more shocked than anyone. Mark, Jake's father, rubbed his temples. "Ryan, we always warned you about getting involved in those sketchy deals." Ryan snapped back. "I thought they were good investments." Seeing where the discussion might be heading, Linda tried to refocus the group. "The blame game won't help. We need to find a solution." Emily, Jake's sister, interjected, "Why don't we all chip in? If we pool our resources, we might cover most of it." Mark sighed. "Most of our money is tied up. We can't pull out that kind of cash right now." Then, all eyes turned to me. I felt trapped, like a deer in headlights. I sensed what was coming next. Jake, squeezing my hand tighter, spoke up. "You've got savings, right? We can use that to help Ryan out." I looked at him in disbelief. Was he seriously suggesting this? Linda's eyes brightened. "Oh, that would be wonderful. Can you help, dear?" I tried to remain calm. "Jake, we've talked about being careful with our finances. My savings are for our future." Jake's face reddened. "This is family. Don't you care about my brother?" Ryan nodded. "Yeah, aren't we supposed to be family now? Or does money matter more to you?" Feeling cornered, I replied, "I understand this is a tough situation, but why should I hand over my hard-earned savings when there might be other solutions? Maybe I can help negotiate with the bank? Work out a plan?" Jake's voice grew louder. "This isn't the time for legal advice. Ryan needs help now." Linda chimed in, with an edge to her voice. "We thought family meant something to you. Guess we were wrong." The room felt stifling, the weight of their expectations and accusations pressing down on me. I had hoped Jake would be my ally, but he seemed to have chosen his family's side. The meeting ended with no resolution. As Jake and I walked back to the car, I felt a chasm growing between us. The dawning light had always been a comforting sight, but this morning its warmth was overshadowed by a chilling discovery. Glancing at my phone, I saw an alarming bank notification. My heart thudded heavily as I saw the staggering amount. $150,000 had been transferred out of my savings, and even more shockingly, it had been sent to Jake's account. Confusion and dread wrapped around me. This couldn't be right. Without hesitation, I tried calling Jake, but he didn't answer. I sent a message. "Jake, why is there $150,000 transferred to your account? We need to talk, now." Time ticked by, and every silent moment only amplified my anxiety. He didn't respond. The swirling unease forced me into action, and I decided to confront him at his workplace. As I approached his office, I saw his empty desk. One of his colleagues, Sarah, looked up and said, "Looking for Jake? He's taken the day off. Some personal matters," he mentioned. I muttered a thanks, my thoughts racing even faster now. With growing dread, I decided to go to his parents' place. Perhaps they knew something, or perhaps they could get Jake to talk to me. The large wooden door of their house looked more imposing than ever. I knocked assertively. After a brief moment, Linda, Jake's mother, opened the door just a crack. Her guarded expression told me she was aware of something. "I need to speak to Jake," I demanded. Linda glanced behind her, hesitating. "Jake isn't here," she replied. "Where is he? He's taken a huge amount from our joint savings. I need answers." Her face remained passive. "I don't know about any money," she claimed, but her eyes darted away. "Let me in. We need to discuss this," I insisted. But instead of yielding, she firmly stated, "I think it's best if you leave," and shut the door in my face. The blatant act left me stunned. Standing there, I realized the gravity of the betrayal. They knew, and they were covering for him. The reception area of the police station was bustling. Uniformed officers moved to and fro, the hum of conversation punctuated by the ring of phones. I approached the front desk, where an officer sat, looking engrossed in paperwork. "Excuse me," I began, my voice slightly shaky. "I need to report a significant unauthorized transaction from my bank account. It's my husband." The officer, whose name tag read Perez, looked up, her eyes filled with understanding. "Take a seat." She gestured to the chairs nearby. "I'll call someone to assist you." Sitting down, my thoughts swirled. Was I really about to report my own husband? Before I could contemplate further, a tall officer approached me. "Mrs. Collins?" he asked. I nodded. "Yes, that's me." "I'm Officer Daniels. Officer Perez informed me about your situation. Let's go to my office where we can talk." We walked down a corridor, and he gestured to a chair opposite his desk. As I explained the situation to him, I noticed his brows furrow in concern. "So, you believe your husband took this money without your consent?" I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. "Yes, and his family seems to be in on it. They shut me out when I went to confront them." Officer Daniels jotted down notes. "Do you have any evidence of this transaction?" I pulled out my phone and showed him the bank notification and the message I had sent Jake, as well as his vague reply. Officer Daniels looked at the screen, his expression serious. "This certainly helps, but it's going to be a complicated case, given that he's your husband. Do you wish to press charges?" Taking a deep breath, I responded, "Yes, I do. I feel betrayed and violated. I need to stand up for myself." He nodded. "I understand. We'll start the process. It may take time, but we'll support you every step of the way." "Thank you," I whispered, tears threatening to spill. Officer Daniels extended a comforting hand. "It's tough, I know, but you're doing the right thing. We'll get to the bottom of this." The courtroom was a daunting place, its high ceilings echoing the whispers of the people inside. Rows of wooden benches filled with friends, family, reporters, and strangers who had taken an interest in the case. The tension was palpable. I sat on one side, dressed conservatively, my best friend Sarah by my side for support. Across the room, Jake sat with his parents. He avoided making eye contact with me. The judge, a stern-looking woman with gray hair tied back neatly, cleared her throat, signaling the start of the proceedings. "Order in the court," she declared. The prosecution began by detailing the charges against Jake: the unauthorized transaction, the evasion when confronted, and the role of Jake's family in possibly abetting the crime. It was painful to relive the betrayal as the evidence was presented. Bank statements, my call records, and the security footage from Jake's parents' home on the day I confronted them. Then it was Jake's turn to testify. He stood, looking much smaller than I remembered. "Your Honor, I admit to transferring the money, but I did it out of desperation. My family was drowning in debt. I thought if I took the money, it would fix everything. I planned to return it." I clenched my fists. He was playing the victim card. The prosecutor spoke up. "Mr. Collins, did you discuss this with your wife before taking such a drastic step?" Jake hesitated. "No, I thought she wouldn't understand." The prosecutor raised an eyebrow. "So, you decided stealing was the better option?" Jake lowered his gaze. "I made a mistake." The trial went on for hours. Witnesses were called, statements were read. When the time came for me to testify, I felt a lump in my throat. With every ounce of strength, I recounted the events, the betrayal, the pain of being shut out by someone I had once loved. Sarah was called up next. She spoke of my character, my hard work, my dedication to building a life with Jake, and the anguish I had experienced when discovering the betrayal. When the closing statements were made, the room held its collective breath. The judge, after taking her time, declared, "Mr. Collins, you've admitted to your crime, and while I understand your intent was not malicious, the act was a clear violation of trust. You will return the full amount of $150,000 to Mrs. Collins immediately, and pay an additional fine for this unauthorized transaction. Jake's face went pale. His parents seemed equally shocked. Furthermore, the judge continued, I advise both parties to consider mediation to resolve any personal disputes. As I left the courtroom, I felt a mixture of relief and sadness. Justice had been served, but at what cost? The man I had once dreamt of building a life with was now a stranger, a criminal in my eyes. After the court proceedings, my mind kept going back to one thing. How did Jake's family end up in such a mess in the first place? And why was I, a mere bystander in their family affairs, paying the price? My curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to find out the root cause. The first person I thought to reach out to was Amanda, Jake's ex-girlfriend from before we met. She had once mentioned how Jake's family had a penchant for shady dealings. Back then, I had dismissed her words as jealousy, but now I wondered if there was some truth to it. I dialed her number, half expecting her not to pick up, but she did. Hello? Hey, Amanda, it's Rachel. I know it's been a while, but I wanted to talk. She paused, then replied, About Jake? Yes. We met up at a quiet coffee shop the next day. Amanda looked different, more mature and composed than I remembered. After exchanging pleasantries, I got straight to the point. Amanda, you once told me about Jake's family, about their dealings. I need to know more. She sighed, taking a sip of her coffee. I wondered when you'd ask. Jake's family has been involved in some sketchy businesses for years. Loan sharking, shady investments, you name it. They've always been about quick money. I frowned, but Jake never seemed that way. At least, not when we were dating. Amanda shook her head. He tried to distance himself from it, but family ties run deep. And when his brother got into that massive debt, he got sucked right back in. My heart sank. So, all this time? She nodded. He's been trying to bail them out. I warned you, remember? I saw the signs, the desperation, the sneaky phone calls, but you were too in love to see. I stared down, fighting back tears. I can't believe I was so naive. She reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You're not the first, and won't be the last. They're masters of manipulation. The conversation shifted, and I learned that Jake's brother had a gambling problem. The debts weren't from a failed business or medical emergency. They were from nights spent at underground gambling dens and high-stakes poker games. I thanked Amanda for her honesty and clarity. As I walked back to my car, everything made sense. The secrecy, the desperation, the betrayal. Jake's family was drowning, and in their desperation, they tried to drag me down with them. After the dust settled, one thing was clear to me. I needed to put the past firmly behind me. The first step was finalizing the divorce from Jake. It was a relatively quick process, given the circumstances. My lawyer, an old friend from law school, ensured that it went smoothly without me having to face Jake again. One evening, after a long day at work, I met up with some college friends for dinner. Sarah, always the one with the latest gossip, leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. You remember Jake's brother, right? Heard he's been locked up for fraud. I raised an eyebrow. You're kidding. She shook her head. Wish I was. Multiple counts of fraud and embezzlement. They say he'd been scamming people for years. Anna chimed in. And that's not all. Jake's parents' property? Seized and auctioned off to clear their mounting debts. I took a deep breath, processing the information. It's just sad. That family had so many issues, so many problems. Sarah squeezed my hand. You dodged a bullet, girl, and look at you now, moving on, living your best life. I smiled, grateful for the support. Thanks, Sarah. It's been a journey, but I'm finding my way. Life continued. Days turned into weeks, and then months. The wounds of the past slowly began to heal, and I started building a life that was truly mine. One evening, as I was settling down with a book, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. I answered cautiously. Hello? Hey, it's Jake, came the hesitant voice. A chill ran down my spine. What do you want? He cleared his throat. Look, I know I've done wrong. I'm in a tough spot right now, financially. I was wondering if... No. I cut him off sharply. But I just need a little help to... No, Jake. You and your family have taken enough from me. I owe you nothing. I replied, my voice cold and firm. There was silence on the other end. Then, a soft, defeated, "All right." I ended the call, feeling a mixture of anger and pity. But mostly, I felt relief. Relief that I had moved on, that I was no longer entangled in their web of deceit and drama. Over time, I immersed myself in work and spent quality time with friends and family who genuinely cared about me. I learned to value and trust myself more than ever, firmly believing that no matter what life threw my way, I would always come out stronger on the other side.